Wray.
This is Andy.
This is FDS CFL Season 3, Episode 4.
That was a mouthful. CFL Week 2 recap. CFL Week 3. We're going to talk about it?
Let's talk about it.
Let's do it.
Pretty dramatic stuff. I mean, there's lots of great stuff to talk about this week, especially my favorite part of tonight's podcast is when we talk about our fantasy results.
Oh, I can only imagine why you're looking forward to that, but we're going to have to put that off for a moment, Ray, for a few moments.
All right.
Let's talk about the sponsors.
Okay.
This episode and all of our episodes are brought to you by Moose Light. If you need a beer, get yourself a Moosehead Light, because why, Ray?
This stuff is scary good,
there
folks.
You go. Show the label. Show the label. Don't show.
Sorry.
Don't
there we
show
go.
The Q hockey league there. Listen.
Speaking of scary good.
That promotion's over, by the way.
Speaking of scary good, I happened to be speaking to Mr. Jack Scary yesterday or Saturday via text.
Yeah.
And he sends on his best wishes. Best wishes.
Good story, Ray. Good story. You want to do a quick recap of the games this past week?
My stories get better as I get more moose into me.
There you go. Only 3 games because as we discussed last week, week 2, there were 3 teams on a bye.
Yeah.
So I think we've complained enough about that. I think it'll come up again.
It may come up one more time.
But we only have 3 games to talk about. Let's start with the Thursday night game. Saskatchewan rolls into Ottawa. We weren't sure what to expect with Ottawa, with Davis and his very shaky quarterback performance despite pulling out a win. What a turnaround. I mean, it was a quarterback duel, a little bit of a quarterback duel that we weren't expecting at all. Way more points than we were expecting.
This game was so exciting, Andy.
Yeah.
I enjoyed this game from start to finish, and this was an awesome football game to watch on Thursday night.
Yeah, it was a total 180 in terms of how Dominic Davis performed in the passing game. Dominic Davis and Cody Fajardo, who I was incredibly impressed with in this game, combined for over 700 yards passing between the two of them. In the end, Ottawa comes through and wins this game 44-41. I'm always talking about how Saskatchewan's quarterback situation and their offense is a bit of an unknown, but their defense is always going to be there.
Yeah.
What the hell do I know, Ray? Anyway, so we'll talk a bit about the game. I was able to see almost the entire game. My big question for you following this game, though, with the impressive outing by Fajardo and the total 180.
Yeah.
I think I told you this in text. This is my opinion. If you don't agree with me, let me know. And I'm talking to the listener and the viewer, not just you. But I believe that Davis was the reason Ottawa won this game, game 2, where in the previous game, I believe he just avoided being the reason that they lost.
Right.
Yeah. So my question for you is, which team's in better shape at quarterback moving forward?
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, as of today, I think it's Ottawa, but I have to hold off on talking about Dominic Davis because I need to talk about him in a few seconds in one of my other segments.
Okay.
So let's talk about Fajardo for a second. I really like what this kid and what he's done here, Andy. Just so you know, he's been in the league since 2016. Spent a couple years with Toronto. He was on BC's bench last year. This game that he played on Thursday night, it was his first CFL start. Okay,
Yep.
He's only 27 years old. Played very well. Played really well in this game. What I loved about this guy, heading into halftime, they got the ball with 12 seconds left to go in the half.
Yep.
This guy went the entire length of the field in 2 plays. He fell in love with 2 wide receivers, Shaquille Evans, who had 7 receptions for 103 yards and a touchdown, and Kyrie Moore, 117 yards on 5 attempts or 5 receptions. Really impressed by what this Fajardo brought to the table.
Yeah.
And I look out, Saskatchewan, you may have just found a quarterback thanks to Zach Caleros going down.
Right. And now all you got to do is refine your defense. I don't know what the hell's going on there. Friday game, Ray. BC rolls into Edmonton. I have a lot to say about this game, to be honest with you. So, your bro, Trevor Harris, ruins Mike Riley's return to Commonwealth Stadium with another brilliant performance. Shaky start, but brilliant performance.
Yeah.
BC looks like a completely one-dimensional team. They looked really hot to start, obviously, took a big lead, and then it all fell apart, and Edmonton had their way. Edmonton wins this game 39-23. Now, before I ask you my big question or my big takeaway, let's talk really quickly about the perception of the attendance. Now, I've heard a lot of people talk about the attendance. You and I both, we looked at the TV and we thought, what is it? Like, this is making BMO look good, you know? We're sitting here, we're watching Shannon Sharpe being interviewed. The stands are behind him. You can maybe count a dozen people in the stands behind him. It looked like there was almost nobody there. This is Mike Riley's return. You either love Mike Riley for what he's done for you, or you hate him and you want to stick it to him, but either way, you want to be there.
Yeah.
So I reached out to our buddy from the Podski Wee Wee podcast, Mike Graham, at Mike_Tycat, if you want to follow him on Twitter, asked him what the heck's going on. He's a Hamilton Tiger Cats fan, but he lives in Edmonton. He's a season ticket holder in Edmonton. He said the best explanation he had was that they were calling for thunderstorms. But then I also heard that, 23,000 people can quickly look like 10,000 people in that gigantic stadium.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it was other than Edmonton, typically, it could be up there in the 30s. And this would have been a game, Mike Riley's return, where you would expect them to be up in the 30s.
This game should have been there. And again, this is one of my talking points for later on in one of my other segments.
My goodness.
But I made a comment on Facebook about the lack of attendance. And I had a few Edmonton Eskimo fans come at me pretty hard to let me know there was 24,000 people there, which would be a sellout in most other stadiums.
Well, it'll definitely be a sellout in our Halifax stadium when we get it. I'll tell you that.
There would be people outside trying to get in.
Big question from the game, because we're going to get back to this in your takes later. I'm going to bring this up before you get a chance to. I'm bringing it up way too early. But you would anyways. And a whole bunch of CFL fans are going to. Trevor Harris, MVP, that has a good ring to it.
It does have a great ring to it. Yeah. I don't want to talk about it yet. It's too early. It's only week 2. He's on the road to Winnipeg this week. He's had 2 home games.
Oh, that's a big game.
Let's see what happens in Winnipeg. But before that, he has had a great start to his Edmonton Eskimos career. In this game, he goes 75.8 for his completion percentage, 294 yards, 3 touchdowns, but he's getting help in other areas.
Yes.
CJ Gable put up 111 yards rushing, Andy, and guess who came back to life this week for him? Greg Ellickson catches 174 yards with 2 touchdowns.
Yep.
Trevor Harris didn't look too sharp in the first quarter of this game, but by the end of the second quarter, they pulled that offense together, and he made a couple spectacular plays to go into halftime. And when they came out to the third quarter, the BC Lions didn't.
Yeah.
And that was the difference in this ball game.
100%. I agree with you there. I also very much agree with you that it's too early to talk about it, and I'm proud of you for saying that. And we'll just move on then.
He's always an MVP in my mind, though.
Oh, of course. Saturday, Hamilton rolls into Toronto and absolutely embarrasses them. Absolutely steamrolls them. Hamilton was doing anything they wanted to do on both offense and on defense. Pretty much every weapon that Mazzoli has got involved in this game, Ray, except for the one I picked in fantasy.
Exactly.
It's craziness. So I don't know what else to say about Toronto other than I guess I was right in leaving them in last place on our power rankings in week 1 until I was able to see what they looked like. Well, listen, we'll talk about our power rankings soon, but they will stay planted firmly there.
Toronto, this was their home opener. They had 16,000 people at BMO Field for this game, Andy.
Which looks like 35
Which
in
looks like
Stadium.
30. And the fans had a big tailgate party planned. I've heard it was great. I heard it was a huge success. It must have been a success if they had 16,000 people in the stands. But there was one problem. The team didn't show up, Andy. It was a terrible performance by a football team. And, and I'm going to talk about this later on in my segment, too. We're talking about Touchdown Atlantic in Moncton selling tickets to this big game. But how are you going to sell tickets for a big game when your offense comes out and shows that?
Yeah, that was disappointing. I guess the only silver lining there is a lot of the fans that were in those seats were Hamilton fans, because that's not that bad of a drive at all to get over to BMO, and they had a blast watching this. So again, I chose Canadian Mike Jones on my fantasy squad last week, and what a terrible week it was for me. And this is only a part of the story, folks. So my question for you here, Ray, is because I'm going to ask you for some advice. My gosh, I'm putting Hamilton players on my fantasy team this week. Which receiver should I pick?
Well, that's a great question. This past week, Braylon Addison, he catches 6 balls for 107 yards and 3 touchdowns, Andy.
Yep.
In week 1, he caught 1 pass for 16 yards.
Right.
He up and down,
I know.
and down. You look at Banks, though.
Yeah.
This week he had 7 catches for 105 yards, no touchdowns. In week 1, he had 6 catches for 77 yards and 1 touchdown.
Well, Banks also had that return.
I know.
Woo!
I know.
So
Banks will be, and he'll still be the number 1 target in Hamilton. He costs a lot of money when it comes to fantasy, though.
to the top in the league.
He's top of the league, so you have to sit down and look at the risk reward and the benefit factor and see if it's worth it when it comes down to money.
Gotcha. Well, I'm sporting my Tie-Cat shirt because I was really impressed with what they did, though I'm not going to get carried away because I'm not sure what this Toronto team is. I'm not sure what this Toronto coaching staff is. I know that I picked up Terrell Sutton in fantasy. I had to choose between one of their running backs, and of course the one that I chose, I don't believe had a carry. But anyway, let's move on, Ray. Let's move on to Ray's take it or leave it from the week.
Take it or leave it. All right. Well, my take it this week, Andy, and I don't have my sounders for it again this week.
You don't have to point that out. We'll just keep moving on.
My take it this week
is
the Ottawa Red Blacks and Dominic Davis.
There you go.
This guy, Andy, I love him. I love what he's done in 2 weeks of the season. He's done this on the road and at home.
And in 2 completely different ways.
This week, he goes out, throws for 276 yards, no touchdown. His first week, he had 276 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions.
All kinds of picks.
Right?
Yep.
Week 2, he comes out, he goes for 354 yards, passes for 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions. What I find really interesting about this guy, though, he's spreading the ball around. In week 1, he hit 7 different receivers. Same thing with week 2. Mm-hmm. He comes out with 7 different receivers, and Rhymes catches 168 yards and a touchdown. Watch out for this Rhymes, Andy, because he has got the speed to get behind defensive backs. And the thing I love about Davis, he's not afraid to push the ball downfield and take a shot at it. That got him into trouble week 1, but as he gets his confidence, if he does this more and more, this guy could be lighting up the stat board as we get into the season.
He's definitely seeing the field better.
Again, the thing I love about this kid, that's 2 wins. This kid can win football games.
There you go.
He's
Ray's turning back
road.
into an Ottawa Red Blacks fan, despite Trevor Harris not being there.
That's right. I'll be wearing my Red Blacks gear next week for sure.
Perfect. What are you leaving this week?
I am leaving Mike Riley and the BC Lions. The BC Lions threw out millions of dollars to get Riley to come play football for him, but they got him nothing to go with it, okay? Riley throws 51% in his return, his big return to Edmonton, Andy. Throws 149 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. But the entire Edmonton Eskimos rushing game came to a total of 53 yards. 24 yards of those was Mike Riley. And he nearly broke his neck on a play down near the goal line. What was he thinking? Was he trying to pull a Josh Allen and leap a linebacker?
I didn't think he was going to get up from that, but he was unfazed.
I was shocked.
He was unfazed.
I was shocked that he played in the second half of that game, let alone the rest of 2019. I couldn't believe it.
My gosh.
This guy, listen, I like Mike Riley. I will listen to nobody that still tells me that he's the best in the league. I don't buy it. But I am leaving Mike Riley and the BC Lions, and they will be looking at a serious slide on my power rankings.
Good. I've got speaking of power rankings, we're going to get to them in a moment, but I want you to remember what you just said, because during our pick segment later, when I have to choose, when I have to make my picks, I want you to remember what you just said about the BC Lions, okay?
Sounds
power
good.
Rankings. You took all kinds of crap about your power rankings last week. You came on and publicly apologized, saying you got a little lazy near the bottom, though I didn't think it was that bad, to be honest with you. Our power rankings mine barely moved this week, so I'll run through mine really quickly, and we'll talk about how yours differed. Actually, we'll go through them together because they're so similar. We both still have Winnipeg at the top. They didn't have a chance to lose it.
Right. Now, I heard from numerous Edmonton fans, and again, Edmonton fans, I love Trevor Harris.
Yeah.
So, listen, if anything I can do to bump Harris up to 1, I'm going to do it.
Yep.
But you don't get to go to 1 just because Winnipeg didn't play. I'm keeping Winnipeg at 1 for now.
It was a tough decision for me, too, and I definitely considered going number 1 with Edmonton.
Yeah.
But I have to agree with you at that. Now, we both have Edmonton number 2, total no-brainer, and there's no movement there. They were number 2 for both of us the week before. Again, the 2 Eastern teams, we have them in reverse. Hamilton stays at number 3 for me, despite the fact that I don't think they absolutely pounded a terrible team. Where Ottawa, beat up on a good defense. So you've got Ottawa 3 and Hamilton 4. I've got Hamilton 3 and Ottawa 4, and that hasn't changed.
Nope.
Now, the number 5 spot, where I had Calgary last week, I still have Calgary. You decided to really compensate for your error. You moved Montreal all the way up to number 5.
Yeah.
Montreal didn't play, so they're still 0-1, and they had an impressive outing, I think, a little against Edmonton. I was impressed with them, which is why I didn't have them last.
Yep.
You moved them all the way to 5. I think that might be a little crazy. We'll get you to talk about that in a moment. Number 6, we both had the Rough Riders. Yep. They were 7 last week, so we both moved them down.
Yep.
We both had BC at 7, where we moved them below the Riders. That was, again, in my notes. If you go to firstdownsportspodcast.com and look at our power rankings, and I talk about my thought process on this, that was very difficult.
Yeah.
But I'm just a little more optimistic about a more well-rounded team in Saskatchewan. I think BC is the most one-dimensional team. Either Mike Riley puts them on their shoulders and carries them to victory, or he doesn't. But he's not getting any help.
No.
So we both made that move. Number 8, I have Montreal slotted there, which is where they were last week. You moved Calgary all the way down to number 8. And then
Grey Cup champions, you lose your home opener.
Yeah, that's rough. And then we both have Toronto at number 9. Now, you made a bit of a splash this week and added a 10th spot to your power rankings. I took that opportunity to just give the Atlantic Schooners a shout out.
I saw that. I love that.
But you decided to add a 10th so that you could put the CFL.
Yes.
Talk to me about that.
The CFL. We're week 2 of the season, okay? And you got a third of the league on a bye week. Yeah. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. I know this is a CFL podcast, and I know everybody wants to talk about CFL, but I need to reference the other pro football league because they don't have their first bye week until week 4 or 5 of the season. To have 3 teams off in week 2, Andy, is ridiculous, and that's why the CFL is in 10th place of my power rankings.
Fair enough. I'm sure, the math in terms of working out a schedule has something to do with it, which just explains why we so terribly need this 10th team. So I decided to make reference to the team that's going to solve this issue for you. And I can't wait until we have no week 1 bye, and then we have no triple team week 2 bye, because it's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
I couldn't agree with you more. How about some odds and ends, Ray, before we make our picks and talk about fantasy?
Yeah, so I got a few things here. Montreal, with Pickem out, he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks, Andy.
Yep.
So they signed Brandon Bridge to a 1-year deal.
Air Canada.
He's going to come in and probably be back up to start. He may get a chance to start a game. My biggest question to the Montreal Alouettes, though, is why bring Brandon Bridge in on this 1-year deal when you've got a young quarterback sitting on your practice squad named Hugo Richard, who was the starting quarterback for the Laval
Rouge
Yeah. And this kid has been an unbelievable quarterback for 5 years with the Rouge. Why not give this kid a shot at quarterback?
Well, he's new to the CFL, Ray. It's a new coaching staff since they moved on from Sherman, and the offensive coordinator situation got moved all around. I think they clearly want to have some experience on the team. Remember, Brandon Bridge is Canadian too, so
I totally get it.
Not that the quarterback really matters towards the ratio, really. So, I guess it's not that big of a deal, but they want to have some experience on the team. Vernon Adams Jr., who looked good, is going to get a shot. But you're right. I mean, it just takes one more little injury, and Bridge is in the game. And I think they're probably a little more comfortable this early in the season going to Brandon Bridge than Hugo. But hey, look out for Hugo.
Watch out for Hugo. I'm a big Hugo fan.
Yep.
I got a picture of me on his helmet.
So
anyways, I'm hoping Hugo gets a shot in Laval.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
I got it. I can show you.
What else you got?
Atlantic Schooners. Okay. So I got into a little bit of discussion today on the Let's Talk Schooners Facebook group.
Oh yeah, always a good spot.
And one of the comments was the lack of marketing. The game is August 25th, so we're right around the corner from that game, and yet we still don't have a whole lot of marketing on this game. My biggest question to you, Andy, is the Schooners came out with a big sale on Father's Day, reducing the price of tickets.
End zone tickets.
Tickets?
Yeah.
Do you think there's going to be a Canada Day sale by the Schooners?
I hope so, but I mean, for those people that are complaining that there's no marketing, they either already have their tickets or they're probably not going to buy any anyways. So I don't pay too much attention to that, but it is a solid point. It's not like you drive around Moncton here, you see billboards about Touchdown Atlantic. You don't hear anything. They've not yet jumped into the more, I'm going to call it the more traditional, more dated marketing, which is radio.
That's it.
Posters and things like that.
Yep.
But as long as you're plugged in on social media, you will find out. So a lot of people are not happy about that and the lack of the more traditional marketing. We talked to Anthony LeBlanc. You can go back and listen to our interview with him 2 shows ago. I believe that's coming. But again, it's June 24th. There's time.
FDS would love to find some sponsors that want to help advertise this game. Let's get a couple billboards up and running in the city. That'd be fantastic.
There you go. Feel free to put our logo up there instead if you want.
There you go.
Be all right. Yeah.
Last topic in my odds and ends. The CFL and the City of Toronto bids farewell with Ricky Ray as he's officially retired from the CFL.
Yep.
Ricky Ray, Andy, just to give you a little update on Ricky Ray.
Oh, sure.
He has 4 Grey Cups, 2 with Toronto, 2 with Edmonton, who he primarily played his career with. He played from 2002 to 2018, had a completion percentage of 68%, and listen to this, 60,736 passing yards, 324 touchdowns, and 177 interceptions. Ricky Ray, who I caught a pass from in the end zone at a previous Touchdown Atlantic when I was the ball boy in the game. He was an exceptional quarterback.
You know he's throwing it to you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good.
He did.
And that's what makes him exceptional?
We had an intermission, or there was a television break, and I'm the ball boy. He had the ball on the sideline for whatever reason, and I'm looking for the ball, and he sees me, and he looks to me to throw the ball, and the whole time the ball was kind of like, don't drop the ball, Ray. Don't drop the ball. Because everybody in Moncton's going to make fun of me if I drop the ball.
100%. 100%. Right? And even I'm going to say you obviously took a lot off it.
I caught it and I dunked it. I
spiked it.
Spiked it.
Oh, that's great. And then you had to go retrieve it from
I had to go retrieve it. Anyways, that's my little Ricky Ray, and that's your odds and ends for this week.
Awesome, Ray. Let's talk about some picks. We only had 3 games to pick. We both went 2-1.
Yeah.
Now, you had to pick an upset last week, and it wasn't an easy decision. I'm faced with a difficult decision this week. You didn't have a real easy decision last week.
It was nearly impossible.
You decided to go with Toronto, and crazy enough, my lock of the week, I chose Ottawa. I couldn't bring myself to choose Hamilton at Toronto because I was a little worried that Toronto might be a little frisky. So I didn't think it actually took some convincing for me to consider that an upset.
Right.
Well, you're in the clear. You're in the clear. So you went 2-1. You missed that game. So you also missed your upset. So your total for the season right now, after 7 games, you are 4-3. You're above 500. Good job, Ray. And you're at 500 for your upsets and your locks at 1-1.
Right.
I went 2-1 as well, but my week 1 was a bit of a disaster. I missed for whatever reason last week. I thought I would call Mike Riley going into Edmonton and win in the day. Yeah. Nothing went the way I thought it was going to go, so I missed that one. I'm 3-4 on the year, but I'm also 1-1 in my locks and in my upsets.
Well, just to clarify, because I need to know this going forward.
Sure.
When I'm picking the games, Can I have picked Hamilton over Toronto, but then taken Toronto as my upset?
Absolutely not.
That's ridiculous.
Absolutely not.
All right,
That's
go
not
ahead.
the way this
Go
works.
ahead.
So let's actually do these picks. We got 4 games coming up. Thursday game, we got Edmonton rolling into Winnipeg. We talked about it a little while ago.
Yeah.
This is a huge game, a huge
Big
test.
game. Big
Huge
game.
test for
Big
Trevor
game.
Harris and Edmonton, and also an opportunity for us to figure out if the Bombers truly did deserve to stay at the top of our power rankings, because what we've learned is that it's not that hard to beat BC. Right? So who knows? Edmonton at Winnipeg. Who you got, Ray?
This is Edmonton's first road game of the year, Andy, and this is the home opener.
Well, didn't they win in BC?
No, they were in Edmonton. It was
they were.
Riley's return to Edmonton.
That was last week, but the first week when Edmonton won their game, I believe they were on the road. I will verify that for you.
No,
Sorry
I'm
for
pretty
throwing
sure
you
they
off.
were home.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Anyways, this week is Winnipeg's home opener,
Yes.
Andy.
Yeah.
And listen, both these offenses are clicking. I believe more in Winnipeg's defense, especially at home over the Edmonton Eskimos. And I am taking Winnipeg at home over my boy Trevor Harris and the Edmonton Eskimos.
And you were correct. They were at home week 1 against Montreal. Completely forgot that it was Montreal as the opponent. So good job. I'm also taking Winnipeg. I believe in them for a reason. I left them at the top of my power rankings for a reason. This is going to be a huge test. It's a really tough place to play. A lot of CFL fans will tell you it's the hardest place to play.
Yeah.
Sorry, Riders fans. So I also am going with Winnipeg. Now, at any point, since you have to choose a lock of the week, feel free to let me know which of these
I
picks
will
is
let you
your
know.
lock of the week.
I'll let you know.
All right, the Friday game, we got Montreal rolling into Hamilton.
Yeah.
This should be an interesting one. I'll hit you up first. Who you calling in this one?
This one was a tough game for me to select. I want to say Montreal here. I really do. I want to say
Really?
Montreal. It's
Okay.
just, I don't know who's going to be playing at quarterback. If it was Hugo Richard, I'd be all over Montreal in this game.
Gosh,
But
come on.
instead, I'm going to take Hamilton because of the lack of knowledge on who's going to be playing quarterback.
All right, I'm also going to take Hamilton. This is not your lock of the week, right?
This is not my
Well,
lock of the week.
obviously, you just said it was a difficult decision.
Yep.
All right. Saturday, we got BC visiting Calgary.
Oh, boy.
Visiting Calgary. Now, Mike Riley, it's going to be tough. Calgary, again, I'm not sure we saw the real Calgary when Ottawa went in there and pulled one out.
I hope not. For
let's-
Calgary, I hope not.
Well, if that was the real Calgary, then we should see an absolute explosion from Mike
yeah.
Riley. Who are you picking here?
This, again, was another tough decision for me. This could have been a lock.
Okay.
But after seeing the Grey Cup champions crumble in week 1,
Yeah.
I'm still going with Calgary in this game just because how one-dimensional BC is, and it ain't working.
No.
It ain't working. I'm going Calgary.
All right. Now, I want you to recall what I said earlier when I said, remember what you said about BC,
Yeah.
that you're leaving them. I want to know, Ray, would you consider BC rolling into Calgary and beating them this week an upset?
I would consider that.
You would consider that an upset?
Yeah.
Then I do not need the flip of the coin, folks. This is my upset of the week. I don't like the pick. As you can see, I had Calgary.
Okay.
But if you didn't agree to let me consider this an upset, I would have had to pick Toronto going into Saskatchewan to win or Montreal going into Hamilton. So I'm so glad you're letting me off the hook here.
Yeah.
So I am picking BC only because I need an upset of the week, and this is the only one I can stomach. So
right.
go Mike Riley.
There you go.
And defending champs, I hope we saw the real defending champs in week 1. I really do.
All right.
And we got a Monday game because we got a long weekend.
Monday.
Coming up. It's Canada Day.
Canada
right?
Day weekend.
Hey, maybe during the commercial on TSN, during this game, maybe we see a little touchdown Atlantic commercial, right?
That would be great.
Yeah, I doubt it.
That would be great.
I doubt it, but maybe we'll see it. And everybody will be so happy. We got Toronto rolling into Saskatchewan for this big game. Big trip for Toronto. Man, they need to rebound something awful. They need to at least have a good showing.
Exactly.
Fajardo is looking at the amount of points that Jeremiah Masoli was able to put up against this team and going, all right, I'm going to have another good week.
Exactly.
Right? And again, we got to see what the Saskatchewan defense can really do, and maybe this is just what the doctor ordered to get them back on track. Who you got here?
Listen, you just mentioned him, Fajardo.
Yeah.
The thing I love about this guy is now even though they lost in Ottawa, Andy, he has some confidence to say, hey, I can go out and play in this league. I can go out and compete in this league. And now his mind's shifting to, I could be the starter in this league.
Yeah.
And he has an opportunity to prove that. And I think he's going to take Toronto to town. I'm taking Saskatchewan Roughriders to win this game. I don't know if they're going to put up 60 points, but they're going to put up 40 points. And that is my lock.
That's your lock
of the week.
Awesome. I'm taking Saskatchewan too, and I don't really have anything to add in terms of a reason. You basically said it all. All right, let's talk about fantasy. You've been really excited about this. Ray, you had a pretty good week.
Pretty good week. I had a pretty good week.
You had 88.8 points. That puts you to 191.2 points on the year, which is good.
It's good. I'm still in 14th place in the Schooners pool.
You're in 14th place in the Schooners pool. You're in second place in the FDS pool.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the train wreck that was Andy week 2. I told you I was going to rebound from week 1. No, I dug a bigger hole.
Oh, boy.
I had yet another player, an expensive player, put up a 0. To the point, Ray, where last week I said, I really feel as though you got to start a defense. It's just, I feel it's right to start a defense. Well, I got to shake things up. I'm not starting a defense this week. I had 47.8 points last week.
Whoa.
Trevor Harris was basically the only player that did anything for me. It's an absolute disaster. 132.6 on the season, Ray. That's 5th in the FDS pool. That is 33rd out of 40 in the Atlantic Schooners pool, and I'm pretty sure that there was one guy that joined the Atlantic Schooners pool late, didn't do a week 1 lineup, and is still outscoring me on the season. So things have got to change, and now this is early, man. Like, we're recording this on a Monday night, so it's subject to change, but I'm going to tell you my thought process.
And I'm glad you said that, because I was going to say, my roster, I've said it. I can't promise you this is going to be my roster on Thursday, but I think it's a good base. I have a good foundation for week 3.
And I feel the same. Listen, these are always subject to change, but you're at least going to see my thought process and what I'm going for here. Now, I'm going heavy on the Ticats. Again, I'm wearing my Ticats gear tonight for a lot of reasons. Not just because I was impressed with their game, but I need them to come through for me on fantasy. Okay. Going Jeremiah Masoli at quarterback. I'm going Thomas Erlington at running back.
Yeah.
Now, because these guys, you're going to see I got some pricey guys here. Yeah. I had to go with some cheapies. Hope for some return yards. Yeah. Some big returns, maybe a touchdown. Christian Jones of Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
He's a dirt cheap running back for me to slot in there. I hope he gets a return, a couple big returns. I spent money on Speedy B. I'm going Brandon Banks at wide receiver.
Brandon Banks. Wow, you're going big.
Going big. Deron Carter was dirt cheap. So I'm hoping Mike Riley has to throw a lot, and he ends up with a lot of fantasy points. So I go in Deron Carter for my other wide receiver.
Can I just make a comment about Deron Carter?
Please.
Watching that game the other night, he gives up on play. He gives up on the ball before the ball even gets to him. And his father's a Hall of Famer, but to me, he is the laziest wide receiver I've ever seen this play the sport of football.
Well, you tweet that at him. He's very active on Twitter. He will reply.
I have no problem telling him that. He's a lazy wide receiver. But good job on picking him.
Well, I'm hoping this week at least he has a jolt of energy. Let's put it that way, Ray. But again, he was dirt cheap. Like he was really cheap. He was under $5,000, I believe.
Right.
And then I rounded out my because I only had enough money left over in the flex for another guy that I have to hope for returns, and that is Martez Jackson of Edmonton. Ray, I'm not starting a defense, and with this lineup right now, I have $1 left over.
Wow.
$1.
That's impressive.
Well, that's a feat in itself, right?
That's impressive.
All right, Ray, what do you got going on in your fantasy team?
All right, Andy, this week here, I think I got a pretty good team ready to go. I took a bargain deal at quarterback. Matt Nichols went very cheap for QB fantasy. And I don't understand it. He threw 3 touchdowns in week 1, but I'm going to take the bargain.
Yeah.
And because I'm taking that bargain, I'm going to get 2 of the top 3, if not top 5 running backs in the CFL. I got Andrew Harris from Winnipeg, and I'm going CJ Gable from Edmonton, and they're going against each other this week.
Opposing running backs, and you're pairing up Nichols with his running
Harris.
back. Yeah, this is interesting.
That was great.
Yeah.
Wide receiver, I got Braylon Addison.
Hamilton's up and down guy.
That's right, up and down guy, but hopefully he can have the same performance that he had last week, and they are playing against Montreal.
Yep.
And then I got week 1 star Brian Burnham from BC.
I had him last week.
Yeah, and that was terrible.
Yeah.
But if Riley can bounce back and have a good performance against Calgary, who knows? Maybe this guy will give me some points. And then, like you, I had to spend something. I went with Christian Jones from Saskatchewan. I got no defense. And because I got no defense, my top part of my roster is looking solid this week.
Yeah, that's an impressive team. And I it really shows how much how limited you can be with some of your flex spot or your second running back when you spend big on a guy like Banks and you go with a top quarterback like Masoli. So that's the difference.
Banks is $16,000, Andy.
Something like
nuts, because he's so high, it limits what you can do with the roster. That's why I was looking for bargains this week.
All right. Well, we'll see how it goes, guys. If you're watching this on YouTube, please click subscribe down below. If you're listening to us on your podcast app, find a subscribe button or follow button and click on it there. And otherwise, enjoy the games. Have a great Canada Day, because we won't be talking to you until after that.
Yeah.
Any parting words, Ray?
Yes, I do. While you're enjoying your Canada Day, Andy, there's one requirement that you have to have. You got to have your Moose Light. Make sure you have a few Moose Lights over Canada Day, because why, Andy?
Because the stuff is scary good.
It's scary good. You got to try it out. Moose Light. Have a great Canada Day.
Talk to you guys next week.
See you guys.